Thank you so much once again for joining us. A quick run through today's program is that we are going to we've started with introductions. A few of you have introduced themselves in the chat, and I want to encourage everyone to do that. Let's connect. You can feel free to drop your handle, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, whichever platform you're on, and you can connect with the fellow content creators that are here. And then I'll give it to my colleague Regina to come in to give us a very brief overview of the program and why we're here. And then from there, I will introduce our speaker, Wendy, and we'll dive into the panel discussion for the day. Thereafter, you have a chance to ask questions. So please feel free to ask questions. Use the chat function. There'll be a chance to ask your question live. Until then, feel free to use the chat function to drop your questions, and we'll be taking them during that time. And afterwards, we'll have closing remarks, and we'll adjourn the session. So once again, karibuni sana, and over to you, Regina. Please give us an overview of the project.
Thank you so much, Doreen, and allow me to switch off my camera just to maximize my internet bandwidth. My name is Regina Bimbe. I work for Digital Opportunity Trust in the learning team as a learning and research coordinator. Karibuni sana to our today masterclass, and I'll be glad to give you a short overview of the GSHA content program. I do not want you to be in the dark, so I want us to be in the same level. So what is all this we are calling GSHA content program? This has been a collaborative effort between the Africa Digital Media Foundation, ADMF, and Digital Opportunity Trust Kenya, or what we call Kenya, supported by google.org. The program has been aiming to reduce youth unemployment in Kenya. That is to train youth in practical content creation skills, leading to increased skills, confidence, and more sustainable livelihoods over time. This 12-month initiative has been spanning all 47 counties, as Doreen mentioned earlier on, and we've been working together with slightly over 40 local partners. And in all those efforts, we've been working together to drive the program's success. By empowering youth as the drivers of action, this project has been leveraging our respective strengths to equip youth with essential digital skills for content creation. We've been fostering entrepreneurship skills to enable our young women and men to monetize their content and create more sustainable livelihoods. We've been also strengthening community support through what we call peer-to-peer learning and mentorship. And finally, we've been ensuring participation from all our 47 counties in our country, with a special focus on reaching underserved and disadvantaged youth. So through the efforts of our community leaders, the program aims to empower 7,000 young content creators. And I can assure you that we are almost there. As Doreen mentioned earlier on, we are almost hitting 6,000. So when I say we are almost there, is that we really worked so hard. And this is to say that we've been delivering foundational courses such as vision and goal mapping. We've been talking about self-awareness, which is a critical skills when it comes to content creation. We talked about financial literacy, introduction to content creation, and all the way to the most recent one that we've introduced, that is basic ethical consideration, that is copyright. Besides the foundational courses, we've also been taking our participants through technical training, that is videography, photography, and graphic design. And all this is to equip our participants with the skills they need to monetize their social media platforms. And to enhance all this learning, we've also been integrating master classes. And we are in the 5th one. And this one shows how far we've come from About the partners, this project has been actualized by one, google.org, and Google's mission is to help solve some of humanity's biggest challenges, combining funding, innovation, and technical expertise when it comes to supporting underserved communities and provide opportunities for everyone. So this is an inclusive course. Um, then we have the Digital Opportunity Trust Kenya, and our vision has been reaching all underserved and disadvantaged young women and men to help them realize their potential when it comes to inclusive digital economy. And of course, we've been having our mission, which is to mobilize and inspire underserved and disadvantaged young people with digital literacy, 21st century skills, and self confidence to enable them thrive. Then finally, we've been working hand in hand with African Digital Media Institute, which is a major institution based in Nairobi, Kenya, and it is East Africa's premier creative media and technology training institution, offering 20 programs at certificate and diploma level. So together with the African Digital Media Foundation and African Digital Media Studios, the group um, forms an innovative career accelerator where creatives and techies get the training, mentorship, and platform when it comes to turning their passion into a profession. So, as I mentioned earlier, we've been working together with over 40 local partner centers. We've been working with churches, we've been working with Ajira centers, Kenya National Library Service, and many other um, partner centers that I'm not able to mention because there are so many, close to 50. So this has been a great cause, and we are headed somewhere. And towards the end of this masterclass, we'll be glad to inform you how you can join this movement because it's a great movement and we do not want to leave anyone behind. So basically, that's just a short overview of Ganjisha Content Program. And back to you, Doreen.
Thank you so much, Regina. Indeed, we appreciate our partners, our implementing partner, Africa Digital Media Institute, our local partners all over Kenya, and we are supported by google.org, so we absolutely appreciate them as well. And our very beloved community leaders who I can see in the room. Thank you so much for the efforts you're making in your respective communities and for the impact you're creating. And I also want to recognize you, the participant, for being part of the Gandisha Content Program. I hope you find it or you found it resourceful. Please feel free to share those success stories on social media and tag us.Kenya ADMI across all social media channels. So at this point, allow me welcome our speaker for the day, SUNY Councillor Suni Wendy. Suni Wendy is a dedicated psychologist and a member of the National Suicide Prevention Committee in Kenya. She holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in counseling psychology from Kenyatta University, alongside certifications in HIV testing services and project management. Passionate about suicide prevention and management, she actively contributes to initiatives addressing emotional and psychological needs. Suni has extensive experience in crisis response, psychosocial support, and community resilience programs through her work with organizations such as Kenya Red Cross Society, Madari Teaching and Referral Hospital, PsychX, and Psychology for Better Living Society. Her commitment to promoting mental health includes leading well-being strategies, facilitating therapy sessions, and training communities to address diverse challenges, including trauma, substance abuse, relationships, and marital issues, behavioral addictions such as gambling addiction, pornography, and loss and grief counseling. Suni, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to have you here, and I'm honored to be facilitating this panel discussion. I give it over to you to please tell us more about yourself. Yeah, over to you.
Hi everyone, I hope I'm audible enough.
Yes, you
Am
are.
I? Is everyone in the chat able to hear both Kiswahili and English, or there are those who only hear Swahili so that I can know? kama tuchanganye ndio tuelewane, sawa? Is everyone able to hear Swahili? If there's anyone who can't hear Swahili, maybe you can comment on the chat. Again, thank you so much for the lovely introduction. My name is Suni Wendy, a counseling psychologist with about over 5 years of experience. I'm really excited to have this session with us today. I always believe that when it comes to mental health, uh, there's so much that we need to learn, and especially being in the social media space. So I'm looking forward to an interactive session. More about me. The most recent experience is I also work or support a hotline in Kenya, or you can hear both language. Thank you to Maini. Yeah. I support a hotline in the country, one of the hotlines that support all Kenyans who call when they have mental health issues. And I can tell you for a fact that every day I interact with at least 5 people who have active suicidal ideations, watu wenye wanataka kujiua, at least 5, that's on the minimum, not to talk about other issues. So you realize that when you're in the mental health space like I am, mental health is not a joke. It's something that we need to talk about, something that we need to address. It's something that affects all of us. And I'm hoping, even as we speak, I was looking at the expectations. There are those who said they wanted to know kama akona some mental health issues. I'm hoping some of those expectations will be met. Um, Definitely, the session is going to be interactive, but the most important thing is that I assure you that you will learn more about yourself and the people around you. And at least one or two, you'll be able to pick one or two information here and there that can help you know how to deal with people better and know how to cope. Yeah, so we'll get to know more about each other as we continue. I also would like to mention, as a by the way, maybe it didn't appear on the profile, but I've worked at a funeral home here in the country for some few months. And when I was there, one thing that I noticed is that a lot of men were being brought in that particular funeral home, men who had died by suicide. So that means niliona evidence physically. So this is the conversation on mental health is necessary, because most of the times when we don't talk about it, when we don't address, the end way inakuwa ni death. The same way physical illnesses also cause death. So yeah, so I don't know. Over to you. Should I begin the session? Is everyone ready? Kila mtu ako tayari?
Yes, Wendy. It's going to be a Q&A kind of approach, so no pressure. And I like that you've mentioned, you've brought about the issue of men, because I think for a long time we've had stories online about men bottling up their feelings and their mental health issues. So I hope as we go on with the session, you can also just unpack that for us and encourage the young men in the room to speak up and how to share insights on how they can navigate that the mental issues that they experience. And I also like that you've mentioned that this is an info sharing session. So please, maybe I should put this disclaimer out there. This is not a session to diagnose you. It's not sasa uanze kujikagua useme inasao ni kama mimi. No. Please, this
Yeah.
is a strictly info sharing session. Don't diagnose yourself. Just come with an open mind. And also, it's not a session that is meant to replace maybe your therapist, an alternative for that. No, it's entirely an info sharing session. Wendy, there's so much that is happening around mental health issues, particularly on social media. And just recently, I came across a video of a famous or a well-renowned TV presenter who was being filmed. He was drunk, and so Kenyans were taking a video of him anakaa amechangamka nini nini. But the question that I couldn't stop asking myself is this guy okay really? People are making fun of him and the video is doing rounds on social media, but is he really okay? So maybe to get us started, you can share with us from your experience, and you started, it's a good thing you started from that point of experience. How do you see social media impacting mental health? And please let us talk about the positives and the negatives as well.
Okay. If you can allow me, I just feel like there's just an important slide I'd like to share, if you can allow me. So just for introduction purposes, and then as we continue, I'm sure some of these answers will come in. Just a minute. Let me share it. Uh, let me know if you can be able to see. Are you able to see the slide that
Yes.
I'm sharing?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, sawa. If at some point you can't see, like I promised, it's going to be fun and interactive and informative. And there's a lot of questions that I know most of us have. Just to also respond to you, I have not ignored it. I'll definitely talk about that. I was hoping that as we get into that aspect of uh what is happening, how do we know people have mental health issues? Let me just give you a brief background. Unajua watu wamekuja masterclass. And at least wakitoka hapa kuna wale wako na notes. I can see that people have notebooks. Wale wenye wako na notebooks, don't worry. I'll give you a few minutes to write down. Just a so I just wanted to give maybe a brief background. What is mental health? Because you see, what I noticed in my brief years of practice is the moment we mention mental health, most people immediately think of mental illness or mental disorders. And the most common term thrown around is depression. We are gonna depression, we are gonna bipolar. So it's just good that we clarify on what mental health is. A bit of introduction. I'll be brief and quick. Um, don't worry, the slides are many, but we won't go through all of them. So ideally, according to WHO, mental health is described as the state of well-being that affects how a person thinks, feels, and behaves. I don't know if that's the part where you're on the slide. Unaona wapi? Kindly confirm, Doreen. What can you see on the slide?
Had pinned you. I can see the slide with the brain thingy and the lights.
Okay. Can you
Let me unpin you so that I can be
can you
able to.
see what is mental health now?
Guys, confirm in the chat if you can see the slide. Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
You
I
can
can
see
see
what
it.
is mental health now.
Yes.
Okay. So okay. So, when you look at what mental health is, this is anything that affects how a person thinks, feels, and behaves. It's just the state of emotional, psychological, and social component. But most importantly, is according to the last part, is someone who we should mute. Joshua. Okay, thank you for that. So anything that is maybe you can help me mute the guy. Okay, thank you. So anything that affects how a person's ability to realize their own potential, cope well with stress, work productively, and relate well with people. Why am I saying this? There are situations where people assume that for you to have a mental health issue or challenge is maybe you need to start walking on the streets, uanze kukimbia ukiwa umevaa matambara, or you lose complete sanity. But sometimes you'll realize there are people who don't know how to relate well with people. There are people who, maybe if you ever live in a neighborhood where there's so many neighbors, there's that neighbor who does not relate well with everyone. Or even on social media, there's always that person who wakes up every day to insult people. And sometimes it's not even content. So you'll find that can be an aspect to see if you're mentally okay. We also look at the ability to cope well with stress. According to WHO, for you to be to say you are at a state of healthy mental health or a state of a balanced well-being, you need to be able to learn how to cope well with stress. Because there are some people who, when they're stressed, small heartbreak here and there, you decide you want to end your life, or you decide you want to cope with alcohol and all that. So it's important for you to know what mental health is. And then the question that now Doreen asked, you said that we need to look at social media. And with social media, there's so much that it does to impact or affect the well-being of a person. And definitely, most of us here are on social media, if not all of us. ama kuna mtu amejikuta hapa na jaiko nini social media. Most of us are digital creators and we interact a lot with social media. So what you realize is the more you spend so much time on this social media, or even the little time that you spend, this is how it's affecting you. And that is why we are even having this conversation. Because when you're on social media, of course, there's the positive sides where people are making money. When you look at people like Aziad, she had one video and the video went viral and her life changed. She was able to maximize that opportunity and look at where she is. I recently saw she was in the UK. So many of us here maybe are using social media in one way or another to make money. There's a time I was also using social media to sell some clothes. Social media has a lot of positives and negatives, but when you spend so much time there, just the same as your favorite drink, maybe let's say a milkshake. If you drink too much milkshake, at some point kuna wakati sasa itaanza kukua na some effects. So it's important for us to notice that we need to have this conversation on mental health and social media, because when you're on social media, you're exposed to are you able to see are you able to see the slide on the importance of psychosocial support?
Yes,
Yeah.
Wendy.
You're able to see that? Okay. When you're on social media, you're exposed to criticism, cyberbullying, and I'll talk about how this affects you mentally and why some people are affected and others are not affected. If you're a content creator, the high pressure to perform and remain and maintain relevance, you realize that some people, every day, if you're going to be a content creator, you have to think of ways of showing up and getting those likes and comments. If your content is not making sense, you will notice some people will tell you, kuna watu watakuja tu andika hapo kwa comment, unabo, or you're copying so and so. So there's so much, and even for you, if it's something you're intending to use to make money, you'll realize there's so much pressure. There's comparison culture. Huh? Najua ukiangalia hapo kuna siku you find sometimes the moment you enter social media, before you check your own comments, you go and check so and so's page, uone amefika wapi, followers wake wamefika wapi. Maybe there are people you're comparing yourself with. Some of them may be people you consider role models. Some of them may be even people you are in school with. Kidogo kidogo unaona mtu ako UK, Europe, wewe hata hujapanda ndege. Si nilisikia tukiambiwa tujaienda airport. Some of us hatujaguza airport. So unashangaa unaona tu mtu anaishingi airport, unashindwa anafanya kazi huko ama ni nini. And this can make you feel like maybe you're not doing enough. And these are things that will really stress you. There's also another thing, I don't know if I've listed it here, but you will see it. The aspect where even some of your family members or friends don't see your social media as a real work. Aoni kama hiyo ni kazi ya ukweli. Sasa you work on social media, what do you mean? What do you mean? And sometimes even having to persist through that and meet all these expectations of people, that can be a challenge. Inconsistent income. Kidogo kidogo, I was seeing on TikTok, there's a lady who furnished her house in less than 2 weeks. Fridge, VT, curtain ya 1 million. And you're wondering, and kidogo, some few weeks back, because I've been following her, she was just posting githeri and smokies as a comrade. But now if you see kidogo kidogo, sasa tunashindwa ni social media ama ni social media gani, ni TikTok ama. So sometimes, and you're looking at your account, you're like, when will I start make money? How will I get partnerships? But deep down in your heart, you know this is something you want to pursue. There's also the aspect of uh, social media addiction. I'll skip it because I'll get back into it later. It's something we'll discuss extensively when we look at the impact of social media on mental health directly. But there's also loneliness and isolation. Some of you will find out now you don't have even real friends. Your life is always on social media. And sometimes even when you're around your real friends or friends physically, you're always on your phone. So even some of your social skills imekuwa affected. People don't even want to spend time with you. They don't want to invite you anywhere because when you're there, you're always on your phone. And these are some of the things that we need to look into. There's perfectionism and burnout. Also on burnout, we'll be able to talk about it extensively, but the perfectionism is the aspect of now when you post a picture, kama hujaiweka filter, usikii kama iko sawa. you're putting so much pressure on yourself. Now, say there's a guy, and I wish I had some of these videos. Maybe if I get a chance, I'll open those TikToks. So, for example, there's a guy who usually posts videos with the face blurry. I don't know if kuna mtu jamaa fulani TikTok huwa anapost videos na umuoni vizuri, but ako na ma likes, ako na ma comments. Saa hizo wewe umeng'ang'ana kutafuta kamera ya 130,000 na saa hizo kwa account ni 5k, uliza pia haifiki, So sometimes you'll also see some of this pressure you put on yourself. It's not very necessary, and then you end up breaking down. Mnaenda up mnakuwa patient wetu kwa madhare, eh? We'll talk about that. Then there's also the aspect of sleep disorders. Sometimes you're not even sleeping because usiku unaenda kulala unafikiria ai nitatoa wapi ile content itanifanya ni go viral, or you're spending so much time reading comments, unasoma comments 300 zote na zingine hata zinafanana, ati hiyo video ni kali. Saa hata ulali, kesho umeamka umechoka, akili imejata, you can't even think of anything creative. And then there's also the mental illnesses and disorders. So you see, of course, where if these are things that affect us as social media creators, if these are some of the challenges we are dealing with, then that means we need to address it, because nani ata address, unaelewa? Because sometimes you're going through all these things na ukiangalia around hauoni hata mtu wa kukusupport, huoni nani unaweza uliza, and then kidogo kidogo umeingia pombe, umeingia drugs, umeingia gambling. So unaona vile aviator inakwanga hapo kila saa. So you find yourself dealing with a lot and you don't know where to look for solutions. So that is why we are having this conversation. And maybe over to you, Doreen. If there's any question or comment in regards to this, and I hope maybe I might have answered the question that you asked with your guidance.
Yes, Wendy, you've answered. Maybe proceed because I see you're still projecting. I feel like
Okay.
ni kama sijui tuachie tu hii session hapa because it's getting really exciting and I feel like the insights are already coming in. So please proceed.
Okay.
Maybe, yeah, just continue to unpack for us some of these mental health challenges that content creators face while engaging on social media platforms. Yeah.
Okay. And maybe even as I speak, can you see me? Ama mnaona tu slides? Kuna mahali inaonekana?
Yes. Mjomba wa
Oh.
Mwarodi's participants can
Ndio
see you.
nataka nikipoint watu muone ninawaona. Kuna wengine. So I hope you can see me as we proceed as well. Okay, sawa sawa. So when we talk about mental illnesses or mental disorders, ideally, I said mental health is a state of well-being that affect how you think, feel, and behave. So when it comes to mental illness, kuna ile sasa nao ugonjwa ya akili ile yenye sasa, like you said, where you actually have to be diagnosed, and uendange ati mtu anakuangalia anasema wewe unaweza kuwa uko na mental illness. There's a tool that we use, it's called the Diagnostic Statistical Manual. It's the tool for assessing mental disorders, and according to that we have over 200 mental illnesses. So, and they come in different ways. Without going into details, there are those that are specifically related to social media, there are those that are related to drugs, but there are so many. There are those that are specific to children, and I'm sure some of them maybe you might have heard them, but you don't understand them. So, but what I want us to understand is when it comes to any mental illness, there are risk factors and causes. Zile vitu zenye huwa tunasema zinachibua ama zinafanya watu wanapata some mental disorders. So for example, we have the first thing, which is genetic predisposition. When you look at genetic predisposition, hapa ni ile mali unapata kwa ukoo fulani or in a certain family, we lost one person by suicide, another one brother akafuata sister. Sa unapata tu anaanza kuangalia hiyo familia, they're like that family must have a problem, because why is it that 3 or 4 people ended their life by suicide? And it's also important to note that we do not say commit suicide, we say died by, uh, without going into more details. So genetic predisposition, you find there's a certain mental illness in the family that inaweza kuwa watu wako nayo ama gukako, your grandfather had, your grandmother, but it was never treated. So it might be going across generation, and then one day inachibuka. Maybe you get a certain life stressor which can make you now develop that illness. We also have brain injury, and when you talk about brain injury, um, uh, This now goes also into the aspect of social media. Sometimes you're exposed to so much negative content. Kwanza ile time ya maandamano, you'll go online, there's blood everywhere. This thing really impacts you. And sometimes it gets to a point where you don't even, some people actually deactivated their Twitter accounts because it was graphic. And also, when you talk about brain injury, we can even talk about physical accidents where someone gets into an accident and then, due to the brain injury, they develop a mental disorder or a mental illness. Or even children, mtoto akiangushwa agonge kichwa, suddenly they are not okay, they don't hit the milestones on time. We have perinatal issues. These are pregnancy related. Maybe let's say when a mother is pregnant, they drink so much alcohol, or they use some certain drugs, or they don't take care of themselves. This can likely affect the child, or even during birth. Actually, you'll notice most of these disorders like Down syndrome, autism, zingine ni due to your situation ya birth. When someone, maybe mtoto wakati anaenda kuzaliwa, enough oxygen does not go into the brain, and they might develop a mental health illness or condition. We have chronic health issues like HIV/AIDS. And this, I'll say, to be honest, if you actually went to a HIV testing center and then you tested and then you're told you're HIV positive, is it something that you just say, oh, okay, sawa nipeni dawa? It hits you in one way or another. Hata kama kwanza, kama ulikuwa faithful and then mpoa wako kumbe alikuwa na wapoa wake akakuletea, this can change you completely. And some people decide to go on a revenge mission. They decide to be reckless and careless. This will definitely impact your mental health. So, or even when you're told maybe you have cancer, any two chronic illness, si rahisi tu accept. Adverse childhood experiences. This one I cannot overemphasize. Sometimes you find, I was seeing online yesterday on TikTok, someone shared a video that sort of went viral because it reached my FYP. They were saying some of you are monetizing pain. Yani mnashindanga tu mkisema vile ulipitia, uliteswa, ati after 25 ufai kusema vitu zenye ulifanyiwa zinakuaffect, they will affect you. As a therapist, I will tell you without fear of contradiction, some of the issues we have, some of the problems that people have, like maintaining romantic relationships, sometimes may stem from childhood. Maybe your dad left you, you've never dealt with that, your mom was abusive. There's any experience that you had before you turned 18, whether serious, if it was a serious experience such as any abuse, living in poverty. Kwanza wale wenye ulilelewa na shida, you know very well saizi hata ukipata do, managing that money can really affect you. Na ndio maana tunajaribu kila kona. Kama ni social media itajipa, wacha tujaribu. Ikikataa, tunajaribu ingine. But you'll notice that any experience you had in childhood definitely has an impact on your mental health. We have life events such as loss, rejection, bullying. Nakwambia, you can find people, and I'm sure we've seen cases where someone has a social media page, maybe over 300K subscribers or followers, and then one day they wake up and they decide to block, to deactivate their accounts, and you're wondering, we'll talk about how rejection and bullying can really affect a person's mental health. And these are some of the risk factors. You find your constant rejection and bullying, it can get to a point where it affects you even outside social media. Or I don't know if I'll be using names, but there are some content creators that we know that maybe they might have shared some of their stories even online, how the bullying or the rejection affected them, but that can cause a mental health issue or illness. A state of prolonged stress. Stress is okay, but prolonged stress is not okay. We have drug abuse. Hapa kwanza kwa drug abuse, watu dorime, unaonanga kuna wale wenye kila saa wanashindanga sherehe, unashindwa kwani hao wanatoa wapi pesa ya sherehe, ama ni brand promotion. La mtu ana sponsorship na EABL lakini anashindanga sherehe throughout. Hapa sasa kuna difference. Kuna wale wenye wanatumia drug users, drug abusers na addicts. So unafaa pia upime ujue uko wapi. So even while you're on social media, you're exposed to this. Or sometimes you, as a creator, an upcoming or a long-term creator, you want to meet people, you want to maintain relevance, and for some reason they make some inafika mali, the trendy thing ni sherehe, and you're wondering, how do I survive, how do I maintain relevance if I don't go to these sherehes, if I don't drink? there's a thin line. Si kila mtu anaweza kunywa pombe na si kila mtu anaweza tumia weed. Kuna ule atatumia akuwe patient Mathare kesho, kuna ule atatumia 1 year akae, kuna ule atatumia 30 years. We jua tu kama unatumia kwenyu kunakaa aje. Because I'll give you evidence. If I could drag some of my patients and bring them here, see, drugs vile inakuaffect so vile ita affect kila mtu. And when you look at the conversation down there, kuna mali nimesema, the topic on drugs is something we need to talk about a lot. Because you see, if your life is constantly on social media, sometimes your anxiety, your pressure, unasikia tu, manze ka sija smoke weed, sina creativity. And that's something you've told your brain. Unaona ile content yenye umecreate ukiwa high, unaona iko na likes, iko na comments, na ile yenye ulicreate ukiwa sober, unaona. So you start thinking or associating your creativity to a certain drug. Sometimes it's not even the drug. Mbona mi nikitumia siko creative. We'll talk about that as well. And then lastly, traumatic experiences. And when we talk about traumatic experiences, I'm also factoring things like some comments. Kuna mtu anaweza kuachia comment and you wonder, do I really need to continue? You even question if this social media thing is worth it for you, or sometimes even experiences that you've gone through in life can even affect you to the point where even the content that you're creating maybe is as a trauma response, like how you associate people, how you see things, how you perceive things is as a trauma response, or even road accidents. Yeah, so that's it on the risk factors. So even as I'm speaking, hizo ni general risk factors to mental illness. But of course, when I was talking, I was trying to clarify on how they can be related to content creators. And the time during Mandamano, I had a chance to talk to some artists. We did a virtual debriefing session. I'll talk about debriefing later, but it's just the idea of being in a space where I allow you guys to share your experiences. We'll do that. I hope time Aisha. I'll allow you guys to share your experiences. And you notice that hiyo wakati wa maandamano, it was the time when every Kenyan was comfortable posting graphic content online. Unaingia WhatsApp, unaona mtu amepost, unaingia wapi unaona mtu amepost. But what you realize when you're constantly exposed to these things, and there are some people, do you know there's a Telegram page I came across? I don't know if most of you are on Telegram. And then that page is just accidents, pictures of dead bodies, pornography. And then I'm wondering, kuna mtu by there ana manage Telegram account. Yeye ndiye anatumiwangwa hizi video. Umse ako aje. Hizi content unaji-expose nayo, hii content yenye brain yako ina consume, there is something it affects you. Kuna kitu ina influence. And you cannot ignore the impact. Because the more you ignore it, it will start showing up. And this will lead us to the next part, which maybe I'd want to hear a few people respond to. How do we know that this exposure or whatever is going on with social media is starting to affect you? Ni signs gani tunaweza ona tuone umsee ni kama saizi hayuko poa mentally, ni kama it's affecting them? I'd want to hear a few people maybe respond to that before we proceed. Maybe you can Doreen, you can guide us. Maybe they can unmute one
Yes.
or two people. Yeah.
No, they can raise their hand and then we'll pick
Oh,
them. Just let's have two people because of time, and then
okay.
the rest we can carry on during the Q&A.
Yeah.
We have a whole 30
Okay.
minutes for the Q&A.
Yeah, I'd want to hear what are some of the warning signs that this person may not be okay mentally, maybe due to social media or just due to life stressors.
You can
Anyone?
raise your hand, guys, if you want to speak.
Unaweza ongea na Kiswahili? Yes, Joseph. I can see.
Let's have Joseph and Cecilia. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope I'm audible enough.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so from my side, I think also about withdrawal and also
Mm-hmm.
isolation.
Mm-hmm.
Considering this can be as a result of maybe this person was proactive in one or three hobbies, and maybe all of a sudden maybe they are not engaging in whatever they were so passionate about. And also maybe also even about reporting to work late, and you used to see this person attending to work very proactive, very jovial, and all of a sudden, and also maybe about status, considering even the post utapata, like maybe nowadays even the post, they are like a red flag they are alarming. This person, even their self-esteem is so low. And you can even tell from whatever maybe he or she posts, or maybe through their engagements, you can even tell this person isn't heading the right direction. Yes, thank you, and back to you.
Thank you so much for that, Joseph. Yes, Cecilia.
For me, I think if you want to know that somebody has a problem, you first of all look at their sleeping pattern. Maybe they oversleep, or maybe they wake up at night wanashindwa kulala. And then we also have irritability. They are irritated, maybe haraka haraka sana. And then finally, tuko na what else? Inability to concentrate. Napata mtu hawezi kufocus na kitu moja mpaka iishe. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Was there anyone else? Maybe naona ni Hannington ameinua, acha tu tumpe chance alafu tufunge. Wengine tutapewa chance baadaye. Yes, Hannington. Hannington aongee. Basi Abednego. Okay.
Also, we can have, I think the person can have a problem of poor performance in terms of work output and poor performance in academics. It can reflect that issue of mental health. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Wendy, we also have some comments in the chats. Maybe you can have a look at them. We have Michelle saying withdrawal. Oliver says changing habits. Eating a lot. Yeah.
I have something.
When you're breaking, is it my internet or it's your internet? You're breaking. Maybe you can switch off your video for a bit and then to save on the bandwidth.
So can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry for that. Just a minute. Back to the document that I was sharing. Everyone who answered, you answered correctly. So, when you talk about the warning signs, it's good for you to note that there's signs and symptoms. Signs is what you can see, symptoms is what maybe people feel. And most of the times you'll find when I talk about extreme cases as maybe death by suicide, most of the times people say, but we didn't know, alikuwa ako sawa. Sometimes people hide a lot. People hide or they don't. You won't even be able to see. They'll carry on their day like normal. And then suddenly you hear, nani by this sijamwona wiki tatu kumbe alienda Ngaria, ama alienda mahali fulani. So we'll look at the symptoms to note, and especially those that you can even be able to see as people who are in the social media space to be able to support each other. There's something I wanted to mention, then we get into that point. When you're in the social media space, if this is something you're using as your work, you need to know that you need to find boundaries. You need to learn how to set boundaries between social media and real life, because sometimes this lack of boundaries can sabotage you, in the sense that, like I said, you're in public spaces where you're needed to show up physically, but you're constantly on your phone. Or sometimes you're on your phone throughout, to the point where you even neglect other important things physically. Ni kama hakuna work life balance. Kama social media ndo job yako, treat it how you will treat a real job or a physical job. And then the other thing I also wanted to mention is that you find there's some sort of unhealthy stigma around seeking help. So you find because most people don't understand what mental health is and what mental illnesses are, sometimes when people speak up, unaona watu wanaanza kusema huyo ni content anatafuta, huyu maybe mtu ameanza kufika mahali yenye some of the stressors they have or the mental challenges they have is showing up on social media, but you, because hauku attend masterclass, haujui mental science za mental illness ni nini, unaanza hapo kucomment, we wacha ufala, you become insolent, or you take some of these things to heart. So when it comes to the signs, like you said, there's what we call the vegetative symptoms. Vegetative symptoms ni appetite, sleep, it's appetite, sleep, mood, and sex drive. If your appetite has increased or decreased significantly, if your sleep has increased or decreased significantly, if your mood is fluctuating up and down significantly, and if your sex drive is either non-existent or it's too high, that could indicate something. It could indicate there is a mental health issue or challenge. For us to know what specific mental illness is or disorder, we have to do now the assessment. That is where you now go talk to a professional. You can't just go online and diagnose yourself. I told you there are over 200, 300 mental illness. Utaenda uangalie useme, mi niko na depression, mi niko na bipolar. But really, do you really have it? What test did you do? Which doctor did you talk to? So this is just to help you now be able to know who needs more help, to even be able to evaluate yourself when it's getting too much, when you're not okay. And then you can also know when to seek more help. So I call them the mental health red flags. So we have some of the red flags and how some of the symptoms may show up for you as a digital creator. Content creation fatigue ama creative block. Manze unajaribu kufikiria content haitokei. Even when you look at someone else, labda seme you want to do something comedy, unaenda unaangalia page ya Crazy Kena, bado hakuna kitu unasikia, hakuna inspiration. Yani it gets to a point where you even almost giving up. But then again, you're looking around and you're like, this is what I want to use to make money. If I give up, then it's over. So when you notice you're having the content creation fatigue or creative block, that could be a warning sign. Frequent aches and pains that may not have mental cause. There's something we call psychosomatic symptoms. With psychosomatic symptoms, this is headaches, backaches, tumbo. I don't know if you've ever had a case where someone is constantly sick, then when they go to hospital, they're told there's no problem. Your head is aching, your stomach is aching, or you're having back pains, unexplained. When you go to hospital, those are psychosomatic symptoms. Sometimes stress may show up that way. We also have irritability and mood swings. There's someone who said both online and offline. Makasiriko, natumagia makasiriko kwa live. Sisi hata tukujui, hata tujui kwenyu, but sasa unashinda umetumagia stress. Please go see a therapist. And when I talk about that, sometimes it's even on the oversharing. You find someone has not been able to create real friendships offline, so they tend to overshare things that may be personal on social media. So that's where we talk about boundaries as well. Even as you're a digital creator, there are some things that you need to know. Is this meant for social media or is this meant for my family and friends? That's why you need real friends apart from the social media friends. We also have um, of course, lethargy and lack of motivation we've mentioned. Memory loss, you forget, unasahau passwords, lazima uziandike, kama kuziandika unasahau. Na hapo kwa short term and long term memory loss, weed has some contribution to it. So kama unatumia weed sana, ukiona unaanza kusahau, usiseme ni social media ndio inakustress, labda ni hiyo weed, tuangalie pia. We have sleep and appetite changes, like I said, increased accidents and injuries, unashinda umeumia, kama una drive unashinda umegonga gonga watu. Intoxication and drugs and substance abuse. I usually say if you have friends that drink or use any type of drugs, you know they are normal. Unajua labda mse, this one is used to 2 or 3 beers. And then suddenly this person wants to party every day. They're calling you every day. Or suddenly if they used to smoke 1 blunt of weed, suddenly they are smoking 3 or 4. Suddenly they're experimenting. So even when you're among your friends and you use drugs, you need to be alert and know who is okay, what is changing. That can indicate something. We have, of course, the depression and suicidal thoughts. And this one I noted. By the way, when you remember that time when every week, I don't know, kama ni last month, every week we had someone who had died by suicide. If there are people here who follow the news guy on TikTok, or you just follow news on TikTok or Twitter, there's a week where there's a lady who jumped, another week another one jumped. And what I noticed that time, even with the trends of the calls you were receiving from the center that I mentioned earlier, people were saying, I feel like I'm having suicidal thoughts. I don't know. Since I started seeing those videos of suicide, people dying by suicide, it's triggered me. So you need to know when you're on social media, what you consume is likely to trigger you. So you need to be careful. Usiseme, me, I watch documentaries on murder and it doesn't affect you. It's not a competition on who is supposed to be numb to pain or trauma. So you need to, when you start noticing you're having some suicidal thoughts or you're feeling depressed, you're finding it even hard to wake up or shower, seek help. Of course, over planning and over analyzing, we have generally increased burnout, compulsive scrolling, hapo ndo social media addiction inatokea. And then we also have imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is a challenge. And this is where sometimes you doubt yourself. You know your content is good, you've given it your best, but you constantly doubting yourself. It reaches a point where you post, you look at it after a few minutes, you go and delete. Do you know there are so many videos that sometimes you can post, and then after a few weeks or months is when it actually goes viral? Just a minute, I'm losing my internet. Let me add. I don't know if you can hear me or I'm disconnecting.
I can
Kindly
hear you,
confirm if you
Wendy.
can.
I can hear you.
Imposter syndrome is one challenge, and if you notice you're constantly doubting yourself, you post something, you delete it, or you're going to so and so's to confirm kama if your content is okay, you need to go talk to someone. It's not okay, especially if it goes on for a long time. And I also need you to know that sometimes some of these symptoms may appear maybe leo kesho, labda leo umeachwa. Kupoteza appetite wiki moja after breakup is normal, ama wiki mbili. 3 months later ukuli, lose weight. 3 months later ulali, there's a problem. The same with all these symptoms. Sometimes it's things that may happen once or twice, it's okay. But when the symptoms are consistent, maybe more than a month, more than 2 months, more than 3 months, then that's a warning that you may need to seek you may need to seek more professional help. Okay. And now I don't know, Doreen, is there any question or anything you'd like to comment on before I move to the next part?
No. I think we've talked about the challenges, how to spot those particular issues.
Mhm.
And now I'd just like you to also talk us through how to navigate them.
How to navigate? Okay.
Yeah.
So um of course I'm gonna jump right into that, but it's good if I explain something. You see, when it comes to mental health and social media, how the human brain how most of the times the human being operates, something usually starts as a thought, it evokes some emotions, and then it becomes a behavior. You need a cognitive triad. With the cognitive triad, I'll use a common example. You call your partner. Relationships zinaumiza watu sana. I'll always use that as an example. You'd be surprised how many people really suffer from relationship issues, either married or single. So you call someone, maybe this is someone you're in a relationship with, and then you're used to talking maybe at a particular time, 9 p.m. This time you call, they don't pick. You find yourself going through some thought process. Number one, you think, this person is playing me. They are cheating. They must be on top of someone right now. This thought, no evidence, makes you start to feel some emotions. You feel angry, you feel disappointed. Then the behavior will be either you call them relentlessly 30 times, 40 times. Kwanza wale mnapiganga 40 times. Munione kando. It's not okay. 50 times. Unapiga simu, non-stop. Or you can decide to think, so and so might be busy. When they see this call, they'll call me back. That will make you feel calm. And the behavior will be, let me not add another call, they'll call back. Or alternatively, you might start thinking, oh my God, they died. Ama amekufa. Ama simu imeibiwa. And then you start to panic. And then immediately you start calling their friends. You take a car, you go to their house. So you notice the thoughts you have about something will affect the behavior and the emotion. So I want you to note this, because even when it comes to social media, sometimes some of these thoughts, process or patterns in psychology tunazita distortions. And this is what you can see here. negative or irrational thinking pattern that can make the situation worse than it is. So when you're looking at the distortions, if you can see it on your screen, maybe you can take a screenshot, note it, so that you can see yako ni gani. Kuna hiyo all or nothing thinking. There are those people who it's either this way or that way. Hakuna in between. Overgeneralization. Because yesterday you posted something and someone commented this, now you decide ni hivyo, everyone blah blah blah, so inakufanya una overgeneralize. Maybe one person commented something because of, and there's this mental filter of, you can look at your social media, maybe you post something and then there are 9 comments positive and then there's one negative comment. Hiyo negative inakusumbua the whole day. Labda hata mtu aliandika mapua yako ni kubwa, you know very well your nose is not big, but this comment imekusumbua hadi umedelete content juu mtu alisema mapua yako ni kubwa. So that is a mental filter where your brain intentionally blurs out the positive and it hyperfocuses on the negative. And when your brain is constantly thinking that way, you need to find ways to ground, ways to recognize, okay, these thoughts are not okay. So before I change this behavior, let me start from the thought first, see how the emotions it makes me feel, and then now you can change the behavior. So mchukue screenshots ya hizo distortions zenyu ndio ujue zako ni gani. Mind reading, wale unajifanyanga unajua kenye mtu anafikiria kabla aseme. Najua tu itakuwa hivi. Hata hujapost ushajua vile watu watareact. We post, put your content out there. Ikijipa itajipa, ikikataa pia ni sawa, utajaribu siku ingine. Catastrophizing ndio hizo, you can take this screenshot.
Wendy, I'm sure you'll share the slides so we can share with them
Okay.
after.
Yeah.
So they don't need to stress about
Okay.
screenshotting.
Sawa,
Yeah.
sawa. Okay, sawa, sawa. So maybe note that, so that this is something that is very common with people outside or inside social media. Now onto the psychosocial support. Now, when it comes to mental health support, like I said, everything, mental illnesses or symptoms appear on a spectrum. There is mild, moderate, severe. Mild can be the normal stressors. Maybe 1 week appetite imepotea, stress kidogo, you don't know how to cope. And maybe when you find a way of coping, you'll be okay. And then there's moderate. Okay, sijui kama nimezi mix up. And then there's severe. So when it comes to coping, the efforts that you're putting to cope should be directly proportional to the symptom or the problem. If you're noticing that suddenly you're having serious mental health symptoms such as hallucinations and delusions, either you're seeing things that are not there, you're hearing things that are not there, haushikanishi vitu, you're losing it completely, I wouldn't just say hiyo ongelesha tu mtu ishe, talk to a friend ishe. That means you might need more professional help. So when it comes to coping, there's the psychological support that you can get, and this psychological support will address the feelings, emotions, thoughts, beliefs, perception, and behavior. And then there's the social cultural, and this goes deeper into the traditions, values, upbringing, relationships, family, and community. So you find there's some, for example, there's a time I used to go to do a lot of community work, and you notice in a certain community kuna tu vile watu wana think, kuna vile watu wana reason huko. Hadi when we go there they're like, mko sure watu wakuja kuchukua information zenyu wapelekea wazungu? Yani you just find there's a certain thinking pattern that is limiting. So you see, when before or you find boys or the young men in that area already believe that for you to make it or for you to achieve something in life, you need to do something extraordinary, or it's not even for them. So you try to empower them, they sabotage. So sometimes you may find before you even help someone, you might even need to address the problem as a community, or even in those cultures where they believe in FGM, the female genital mutilation. So you can't just go and start picking someone and changing. So there's some things that go deeper. And that is why even when we start talking about some aspects, we need even to talk about parenting styles. Those who are raising children, how do you train boys? How do you, from childhood, what are you told a man should behave? Some of you're told a man should be strong. And I remember in that same activity, there were two children playing, a boy and a girl. The girl, who was a bit old, I think she was like about 5 years, took a padlock and hit the boy who was like 3, 4 years on the head, and the boy started bleeding. Before I could immediately respond, the mother came and he was like, Baba, don't cry, you are a man. Unalia nini wewe ni kijana? And the boy is bleeding. And the girl she even started crying louder. And immediately I could see how the emotions of this boy was dismissed. And it starts from childhood. When a man today decides to post a video crying, God forbid you post yourself crying on social media. Mwanaume ni kulia nini, kulialia nini, you will become a meme. So you see, even as a society, even as an individual, what is your perception about men expressing emotions? So we need to find a way in which we are accommodative of emotions. We understand that whether you're a man or you're a man or a woman, you have emotions, you have feelings. And this goes to you. How are you a safe space to people? Can someone come to you akwambie mimi na feel hivi and you support them? Hmm? So when you're looking at support also is what kind of support does a person need? Who is supposed to provide this support? When do you get this support? So of course, when a person comes to you, or even when it comes to you yourself, when you're evaluating, you've already assessed, you've already seen you have some mental health issues, you have some stress here and there. Ask yourself, what support do I need? Who can help me get this support? Start looking around. If it's you need to consult psychologists, you need to talk to your friends, you need to talk to your parents. Sometimes you may need to even just go and show up in those rooms if you need a job. If you need brand collaborations, sometimes maybe shida ni do, but sasa we hakuna email umaituma ya kutafuta brand collaboration. We mwenyewe hata hujajibrand, hata una rate card na unashinda ukisema upati do social media, ama sometimes even the stresses that you have, we mwenye hata uja take time kuchukua personal initiative ya self care. Every day you wake up, diet ni 3 blunts of weed, alcohol, maybe a bit of food once in a while, and then jioni unasema manze joy IGP creativity haiko. What are you doing to enhance your creativity? No, so it starts from self-care, the basic things you do even before the mental health issues develop. When the mental issues develop, how are you able to even identify and know that I am not okay? Then now you seek the right support. Of course, how how often and what under what circumstances should support be provided? It depends. There are situations where you may need to be sent to a rehab. You may need your family to come through and send you maybe to a rehab. There are situations where you may actually need to go to hospital for detox or for medication. So usikue in denial. Kama unaona situation ni mbaya, accept. Yeah. So when you look at what else to do, of course, the work culture where we openly discuss mental health issues. We are talking about policies, and I appreciate what Dot Kenya is doing. I appreciate all the sponsors, organizers. Just this workshop by itself is a starting point. There are people who never knew anything about mental health, but having spaces where we actually discuss mental health, to bring in professional or experts, this is something. It's a good starting point or continuing point, assuming there's already something that you're doing. We need to also have supportive networks where both online and offline. At least you need to look around you. If you look around you, can you count at least 3 or 4 people that can come through for you? When you feel down, can you call people? Ama wewe ni mtu umekaa tu watu ama ulisha make it social media siku hizi unaona au tuhitaji unahitaji tu mafans. Hata ukimake it usitusahau. Hata kama uko na followers 200k na mimi wa 5k nakuja tu polepole. So make sure you also have real friends that are there for you and friends that can tell you the truth when you're messing up. Of course, I've talked about learning more about mental health, medical checkups, and I don't know if this will take time, but I'd want to know maybe by show of hands here in the room. Mnaweza onyesha mkono, how many people have ever gone for a therapy session or a mental health checkup? Ninaangalia Huntington number 1 ama Huntington mkono ilikuwa karibu na hiyo place ya hands. Anyone else? Regina, nawaona sana. How many? Can you say how many have ever gone? Nice. Israel. Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, Regina, you have. I hope sijakupea pressure. I hope it was not peer pressure. Yeah. So this is a good number. I'm actually seeing 1 or 2 people or 3 who've raised their hands, and that's a good thing. But you see, the majority have never, because maybe you think that people who have mental disorders, watu wenye wamechizi ndo wanafaa waende mental checkup. No, everyone needs to at least once in a while go for a mental health checkup, go for a therapy session. Ongea useme vile uliteswa ukiwa mdogo, vile ile breakup hujai sahau, enda useme vile una struggle na masturbation na pornography na hujai ambia mtu. Hizi ndo vitu zinakuwaste. Ukiingia online unashinda huko. Si mnajua kwa mali mnashindanga, nisiingie into details. Yeah, so you need to go for checkups. We also need to promote digital detox and mental health breaks. Hata kama wewe social media creator, for those who follow Lydia KM and Murugi Munyi, I saw they are going for a digital break. And these people make money online. You know, sometimes the excuse of keeping you online is, oh, I need to be consistent. Na saizo you're not okay. When you notice you're not okay, some of the social media breaks can be helpful. At least labda enda panda mti, enda tembea mahali kwa forest, enda ushago, ukae uone mang'ombe. Do something outside social media. Then after 1 week or a few days, go back. You'll find yourself even more fresh, more creative. Hata itapunguza hizo pressure za comparison, because now you get to think outside external your social media influence. And then lastly, practice self-care. And with self-care, I'll conclude with this. Here. Self-care can be physical, psychological, emotional, spiritual, personal, professional. So even as you look there, try and see what to add to your routine to take care of yourself. And because I am a good timekeeper and I know people have a lot of questions, I'd like to hand it back to Doreen to guide us, and maybe we get to hear a few feedback here and there. Doreen, over to you.
Thank you so much, Wendy. I've learned a lot. Sijui kama wewe umejifunza kitu, maybe unaweza tuambia pale kwa chat. What have you gained? What have you learned? What are you, if you're going to take one thing home from this session, what would it be? And now I want to hand it over to Regina to come in and moderate the Q&A session. If you have a question, you can raise your hand or you can drop it in the chat, and Sonia will be answering that.
Thank you so much, our moderator Doreen and our speaker Wendy, for that insightful session. As mentioned, we are now moving on to the Q&A session where we will address some of the questions. I'm not sure if you've started submitting them, but for those who haven't submitted yet, you can do so by typing them in the chat box. If you'd like to ask your question live, please use the raise hand feature, which you can find at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So let me see. Let me see. Petrola mentioned something on the chat box. Maybe it's the cost. Wendy, what do you have to say about the issue of the cost? Because I'm sure it's been a big interest when it comes to some of us seeking mental solutions from experts. What would you say about that?
Okay. Maybe one thing that I'll comment, or one thing that I'll say in regards to that, ni kama we are used to telling ourselves mental health is expensive to the point where that is what you've believed. Would you believe me if I told you there's some organizations that offer free counseling online? Mental health, you can find a counselor for as low as 500, 1,000, 2,000. But you see, when you've already told yourself it's expensive, ni hivyo sasa ushafunga hiyo opportunity. Ushafunga hiyo opportunity ya kutafuta. Yes, I know, compared to other physical care, hospital, you can go to a government hospital and maybe pay 300 and be seen by a doctor. Of course, mental health may not be very available, but help is available. I know some people charge as high as 5,000, but if you're serious and you need mnaona kuna mtu amesema hiyo low ndio ya mafuta, ni kwa sababu you're not prioritizing mental wellness. I feel like it may not be expensive, is relative. Saizi mtu akipata kona, I'll use this example, sorry if I'm a bit direct. If you find out you have UTI or you suspect that ama tumbo ikuume ukose kulala usiku mzima ama meno, uende hosi uambiwe kung'olewa hiyo meno ni 3000, trust me utatoa hiyo pesa, but because you don't feel like mental health is that important, mnaonanga kama ni kuongeleshwa tu, so when you remove money for it, ukitoa do una feel kama unaumia, but I feel like mental health, yes, the price is comparative. Depending on your budget, you can get it for as low as 500. My colleague here, Dr. Juma, will be able to comment on how we can be able to support you, where else you can get this help, but it's available. Uzuri wenye tumekuwa hii masterclass hii tunajua tuko ready kuenda therapy, si ndio? Sasa we will direct you on where to get the help, but help is available. I hope I've answered, Regina.
Yeah, you have. Then Sieva says, what if you have a friend whom you share your issues to? Your issues to, I suppose. Do they qualify to be counselors, Wendy? I know.
What if I have a friend mwenye ako na shindano na nanidunga nayo? Is he a doctor? Anyway, one thing that I need you guys to know is that when it comes to mental health care, even counselors need to be qualified. Nowadays, we have a board of unafaa uchishe mtu muulize kaa kona license ama kona certifications, because there are so many quack people who go for 1 week training, then they come and say mi ni counselor. And I remember I saw a case on TV some years back, I think to 2010. There's a lady who opened a hadi alifungua hospitali somewhere in Kariobangi, and then a child was brought in who had been sexually assaulted or raped. Do you know this woman told the parents of the child, the mother, akamwambia acha aende huyo mtu arudie tena and then mumlete na evidence because muliosha evidence. Someone who is not sane will hurt you. So even when you're looking for professional help, look for people that are qualified. Even if you talk to your friend, even if they hear you, wakusikiza hata kama anakupea the best ad, even, and this I'm also talking about social media influencers. Some of them may give you information, but they cannot replace professional counselors. Seek professional help. Ndio upate the right diagnosis, ndio upate the right treatment. Some of you need to be on medication for some serious disorders, but you've never gone to a hospital. Seek professional help. So I hope I've responded. Your friend is not a counselor, he's just your friend.
Okay, before I forget, when you've mentioned that we have institutions that offer counseling services for free, would love if you perhaps mention some of these institutions where help can be found, perhaps later. So let me move on to another question. Isaac says, question, can anxiety be associated with mental illness? Wendy.
Okay, that's a good question. Remember when I said that there are over 300 or 200 mental illnesses? Anxiety disorder can be classified under that. But I need you to note that having one symptom of anxiety or just feeling anxious by itself is not an anxiety disorder. The same way as feeling sad or low does not mean you have depression. For you to be diagnosed with any mental illness, you need to have about 6 symptoms. They need to be occurring for more than 3 months, and they need to be affecting your life significantly. Anxiety is one of the disorders. Again, the internet is a resource. I didn't want to go into specifics, but it can be if it's constantly affecting you, it has happened for more than 3 months, and it's affecting your life kabisa, then it can be a disorder. But you need to go to a therapist. Usijidiagnose useme mimi nakuanga na anxiety disorder, okay? Yeah, but it can be.
Okay, Sebastian Peter says, is delay of about a year to notice the red flags redeemable?
Pardon?
Sebastian Peter says, is delay of about a year to notice the red flags redeemable?
We ameachwa. Sebastian, umeachwa. You ignore the red flags. Anyway, when it comes to relationship, what I can say is kuna negative and positive relationship patterns. If you're in a relationship, and I hope this will answer you, Sebastian, if you're in a relationship or a situation where you're neglecting your own needs to prioritize the other person, you're not happy, but you're still stuck there. You're going over and beyond, neglecting your friends. It's yani wewe ndo unaumia na uko hapo na utoki, then something is not okay. it might be a negative relationship pattern. When you notice it's stressing you again, talk to a therapist, because then we can go into the specifics of what's going on. What are these red flags? Then we can give you individual support. But yeah, of course, 1 year red flags ukilenga kuna shida. Maybe you don't love yourself enough. You need to go for therapy to see how you can improve your self-love.
Thank you, Wendy, for that response. Beverly says, is constant crying with no clear reason a sign of mental problems?
When we were talking about mood, of course, mood is high and low mood, and crying every day, every time without any specific reason, that's of course a red flag. How long has it been happening? Has it been for more than 2 weeks? Even if have you tried to do anything to stop it? Again, like I said, that might be one symptom, but we need to sit down and find out, apart from this crying, what else is happening? Do you have low energy? Are you having difficulty concentrating? Are you feeling worthless, hopeless? We need to do an assessment. So crying by itself, it might be a problem with your eyes. Maybe macho inatoa machozi mingi. But sasa ukikaa na therapist, ndiye anaweza angalia aone shida ni gani, then we can direct you and guide you. But it's not okay, of course, to cry every day.
Thank you, Wendy. Joseph Nyoike says, yeah, it's a question. What about procrastination? How can you go about it?
One thing that I noticed with procrastination, it goes hand in hand with perfectionism or imposter syndrome. Sometimes you don't believe that you're ready to do it, or you feel that when you do something you won't do it correctly. So you end up saying, I'll do it later, I'll do it later. It's a form of self-sabotage. It can speak to a lot of mental health issues, but ideally, when you notice you're procrastinating a lot, I usually say, have you done something to address it first? If you've done something to address it, then it might go away. But if you've not done anything to address it, utaishi ukisema mi nakwanga na shida ya kuprocrastinate, nakwanga na hii shida. You need to try and do something to change it or to address it. Ikikataa sasa, then now we can say it's a problem. But mostly, sometimes it's just negative behavior that you've allowed to go on over time without addressing it. Okay? But do something about it. Ikikataa, then you can seek professional help.
Thank you. Thank you, Wendy. Read something funny here. Oliver says, please talk about music as a mental health strategy. Juu nikiwa na mawazo, nasikiza rumba, then I calm down. Okay, Ben, I think I can read the next one. If you have something to say that regarding that, please. You'll have time for that, Wendy. Jeffita says, personally, small things hurt me, but big things don't. For example, if someone steals 50 bob, it would hurt more than someone stealing my phone. And it hurts to an extent I don't talk. Is it a problem that could affect me?
Oh, Jeffita, that's a unique name. Okay, first of all, I love the self-awareness. I love that you know yourself. I usually say hiyo information kidogo hivyo ijatosha ni kuambie diagnosis. Ni kama ukienda hospitali uambie daktari naumwa na kichwa, inaweza kuwa ni malaria. Atakuuliza, ai, umeenda mahali kuna malaria? Unaumwa na joints, unaumwa na tumbo, unaumwa na kitu ingine, so uko na fever. So the same way when you say small things hurt you, the therapist in me or the psychologist in me wants to know more about it. Is it that everyone who does small things to you hurt you? Is it specific people? Is it something that has been happening for a while, or is it something recent? But of course, I might need to know more so that I can give you feedback. But what is small things? Maybe small things to you may not really be small things. So I can't really respond conclusively on that. But I don't know. So siwezi sema if it's a problem or not. I may need to get more information on that. I hope I've responded to you, Jeffita.
I hope so too, Wendy. Thank you. We have 3 more. Sorry, Fady says, when I'm stressed out, I tend to cry a lot and it helps because after letting out my tears, I feel redeemed or I sleep often. Then nitakuwa sawa. Quiz, is doing this okay? Ama I'm just lying to myself. Then allow me to read the next one. Jomba says, I am in a region where mental health cases are on a high and keep escalating due to low literacy levels and deep belief in witchcraft and leadership, and helping utter success in content creation and sports, inaingizwa ndani, sijui South Coast itasaidikaje. An
Okay.
interesting one there, Wendy.
Yeah, maybe I'd like to respond to that. Mjomba, thank you so much for that question. This is a challenge we are having in the whole of Kenya. And you remember I mentioned that I've worked in Mathare Hospital. For those who know Mathare Hospital, for those who are in the coastal region, it's like Portrees. It's a psychiatric hospital, the biggest in the country. What happens is when most people are brought in with mental health issues or conditions, wakati watu wanaletwa na makamba, sometimes they say they're seeing things that are not there. They're seeing snakes. Mtu anasema anasikia kama ananyongwa usiku, mara anaona sijui guka yake mwenye alikufa. When it comes to mental illnesses or symptoms, there are symptoms that usually manifest as spiritual things. Kuna ile tunaita persecutory delusions or religious delusions. Maybe I didn't go into details, but so what I usually say is witchcraft, atutakata, we live in Africa. Maybe there's witchcraft, but before you conclude that this is witchcraft, this person needs to go to hospital first. Because we had cases, and I even had a client who came and told me the devil told him to kill all his family. I even described, this client even described how he stabbed all his family and they bled and he watched them die. I was in Mathare that time and I was almost scared. I was almost ran away. Only for tomorrow for me to come in and the parents and the family walked in. These parents were not there. This person was just seeing things that were not there. They were having what you call hallucinations and delusions. But you know, if this person was talking to a pastor, the pastor would immediately start casting out the demons. So there's the role of spirituality and there's the role of medical care. So before you conclude something is witchcraft, watu waende hospitali. Juu huu patient alipewa madawa zinaitwa antipsychotic medications. After some time they were able to think sane. They were even able to know themselves. I even came to realize even the name they told me before was not their real name. They didn't even know their real name. Unaelewa? So I understand it's a challenge we have not just in South Coast, but even in Kenya, in Africa in general. And that is why we are saying thank God for these sessions, because now we are getting to learn. In one way or another, you can see how you can contribute to the awareness, one step at a time. I hope I've responded, Mjomba. Yes.
Thank you.
Regina.
Yeah, thank you for that comprehensive answer, Wendy. Let me read two more. Beverly says, when it comes to death, for example, losing a close person and not easily coming to terms with the fact that they are no more and constantly imagining that they are watching, and you talk to them and ending up crying, is that okay? Maybe a way of healing and it will stop.
Hi, Beverly. First of all, sorry for your loss. I can imagine maybe how recent or how difficult it must have been for you. Ideally, when it comes to loss and grief, again, organizers, maybe we can have a specific session on that. But when it comes to loss, in counseling, we usually say we don't give time frame for how or when a person should heal. Ati sasa if your mother died last year, by this year you're supposed to be okay. No. But there's something we call complicated grief or chronic grief. Complicated grief or chronic grief is the negative type of grieving where 3 years later, 4 years later, the grief is still fresh, as if it happened yesterday. It's like you're not healing. It's like you're not moving forward. When it comes to how to mourn a loved one, loss and grief huwa inaappear in stages. Huwa tunaziita dubbed. I'll say it very fast because of time. There's denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. You don't just accept immediately. So you might find yourself struggling. Leo unasikia ni kama umekubali, kesho unasikia ni kama uko sawa. Leo unaamka unasikia kama umemiss, kesho unasikia uko sawa. But the thing is, when it comes to grieving loss health in a healthy way, try to, of course, involve a therapist. Secondly, try to ensure that you incorporate healthy ways of mourning. I like when people do things like journaling or saying something like letter to my, same if it's your mom, letters to my mom. On special days, you can say, hey, mommy, today is my birthday. I wish you were here. If it's a wedding, hey, mom, wherever you are in heaven or in hell, I hope you're watching over me. Some of those things, you can do it, then you close that book, then you go on with your life. But when you start entertaining the idea of sitting down and talking to them and they're not here, that can open room for mental illnesses. It's not healthy because now unajikuta unajiongelesha, and then it's like sometimes you're not allowing yourself to accept the death or the loss. Beverly, if it's something recent and fresh, again, I'd encourage you go talk to a therapist, because then that's where we'll be able to customize the healing or treatment according to your needs. Sawa sawa. I hope I responded to you. But be easy on yourself. Usikue ngumu sana. It will take time before you get to the point of acceptance.
Great. Thank you, Went, for responding to that question. Our next one, I think the last one, comes from Oliver Mwangi. He says, a student is asking here, he says he has trust issues. He has trust issues. He can do crazy things. Just confirm trust from the other party. It doesn't matter what the party will go through, positive or negative. Is this a mental health problem?
Okay.
I'm sure. I don't know if it's clear to you. Could you
It's
kindly address that? Yeah.
okay. Like I said, ni kama vile tu ukienda hospitali ukisema typhoid, ninaanza kushikanisha hizi symptoms zinaweza kuwa ni ugonjwa gani. Ndio nasemanga tunakaanga tunawasoma. Anyway, Oliver, again, this is just a paragraph and it may not be clear. But when it comes to the aspect of constantly not trusting people, where you go to crazy extents of trying to prove trust, there's something we call persecutory delusions. It's a symptom of mental illness or mental health issues, where sometimes kama unashinda umeshuku watu. And there's also something called just delusions by itself. You need to look into it, because there's of course situations which you can say someone broke your trust. At least you have evidence they broke your trust and you're finding it hard to trust them. But if someone has not broken your trust, they've not done anything physically, or there's no evidence to show that what you're suspecting is correct, then that's not okay. Hii mambo na kutrust, why am I saying it? And maybe Regina, allow me to just say something briefly. We have a lot of cases of femicides and homicides saizi. Watu wanauana. Why? Kuna kitu tunaita jealous delusions. And I don't know, maybe someone can type it down so that people can Google later. Jealous delusions is a type of jealousy where someone constantly believes that their partner is cheating, even when they are not, even when there's no evidence. And they go to the extent where someone will say, toa hiyo suruari ninuse, ama leta hiyo simu ni mimi ndo nitashinda nayo. Or they go to the extent of going through your whole contact list, calling everyone, to the point where it's not normal and sane. And most people, it gets to a point where even someone goes and stabs the partner or kills the partner because they suspect they were cheating, and there was nothing like that. So when it gets to that point, this is someone who was not mentally okay, but until it gets to the point where mtu ameuana, that is when people will start to see, oh, okay. And then the other thing, when people actually commit murder, sometimes they're brought to Mathare Hospital for assessment. Ndo tuangalie kama hii alifanya akiwa sawa ama hakuwa sawa. Most of the times, hizi mashida zenye zilikuwa zimeanza kama trust issues, tunakujanga kujulia senye imekuwa mbaya. So when you notice it's a problem, na ndio uone ameuliza hivi, maybe ni kitu hata yeye mwenyewe ameona hai make sense. It could be the partner is cheating or not, but for you to know conclusively, talk to a therapist. Mnaona hapa kuna so many reasons as to why you need to talk to a therapist, because some of these things hauwezi jua hivyo. Hauwezi jua until you talk to a professional. Yeah, so it could be a problem or it could not be a problem, but you need to talk to a therapist so that you can know. That is all from me. Over to you, Regina.
Okay, thank you. Doreen would allow me to take two more, please. Yeah.
Actually, take 5 more. Take 5 more, Regina. There was
All
a
right.
question from Francis Mwangi, and then I think Isaac also asked a question earlier. Isaac Okware. Maybe you can check those two first.
Okay. You could also help me trace them, please.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, please help me. Lynette says, how does one deal with ruminating, repetitive, years after narcissistic relationship? Then we have Brian Kibet saying, how do you deal with people who withdraw and just shell up and they do avoid? Mhm. Could you
Okay.
kindly respond to that, Wendy?
Okay.
Yeah.
The aspect of narcissism haikosangi anywhere. Narcissistic, and when it comes to, if there's one disorder that people have been diagnosed with a lot in this country or in this world is narcissist. Mkiachana na mtu, suddenly they were a narcissist. So before I can even respond to that, uh there are so many abusive partners, or like partners who hurt you, they make you feel worthless, they make you feel useless. And sometimes after you've left that relationship is when you look back and you're like, this was actually an unhealthy relationship. But it doesn't mean that everyone that you broke up with or everyone that hurt you was a narcissist. For us to conclude that someone is a narcissist, that's a personality disorder. Again, there's an assessment that needs to be done. You can't just go online and Google and say this is a narcissist. So the ruminative patterns, it's ideally every if you've gone if you've entered a pool, a swimming pool, you'll come out wet. That is evidence to show that you are in a place where there was water. The same way, if you've been in an abusive relationship, when you come out, there are some things that you will need to heal from. Maybe this is a relationship where you are not allowed to talk to your friends. It's a relationship where you are not allowed to work, or it was a relationship where you are constantly controlled or being abused verbally and all that. So all these things need effects of trauma. And when you leave, it will take time for you to process them. Of course, you need to find self-care strategies, like I talked, but also you need to find the correct help in therapy. Maybe you're sitting down, you're in a healthy relationship now, but you're finding yourself ni kama you're even missing the chaos, or you're even sabotaging. You find healthy people boring. Mtu akikuja kununulia maua unashangaa, ai, huku kunaendaje? Na mimi nilizoea huko mali nilikuwa naambiwa maua ni ya nyuki. So you need to take time to process, accept that whatever happened in the previous relationship was not okay, accept that it impacted you in one way or another, and now start to find healthy steps to heal from that. Sawa. And if it's a friend, encourage them to also go to therapy. I hope I have answered that on the dealing with a narcissist. What was the other question? Sorry, Regina. The second question after
Yeah.
the
Yeah, I can read it for you. Brian Kibet says, how do you deal with people who withdraw and just shell up and they do avoid conversations? They do not want to talk about them at all.
Okay. Uh-huh. I don't know, I don't know if that's a case of kuna rafiki yangu mwenye anafanyanga hivyo, if it's a personal thing. I'll respond as if the person who does that is here. Ideally, people are different. People have different personalities. People express themselves differently. So if this is someone that maybe you're close to, or someone that they consider you a safe space, and they are suddenly withdrawing and not talking to you, then that means you might need to encourage them to seek more help or support without being pushy. But if it's someone mwenye hata hakutrust ama hakupendi ama anakuavoid, just sometimes you can be in a situation where you're asking people to provide information to you and they're not comfortable with you. Maybe mtu unaona ana share hapa aongeleshi watu, labda anaongelesha watu wengine, ni wewe hataki kukuongelesha. So again, if it's something you've noticed and if this is someone that may be going through something, try to find ways through which you can be a support system, a safe space. Encourage them, you're there to listen without judgment. Ukiona they're not ready and willing and you think maybe they need more help, then you can direct them to therapy, or you can also find other people that they are close to that they might open up to. So I hope that has answered. Again, context. Some of these questions I might need context. Yeah. I hope I answered
Thank
that.
you.
Mm.
Thank you for that. Then lastly, Francis says, what are some of the best practices one can use to deal with, say, anxiety?
Okay.
Wendy,
Yes.
maybe you can combine it with Isaac, who asks,
Uh-huh.
can anxiety be associated with mental illness?
Okay. So I like how anxiety has come up, but on its own, anxiety is actually one of the most common mental illness we have after schizophrenia and bipolar. So definitely when it comes to anxiety, um, there are immediate strategies. Immediate strategies can be activities such as grounding techniques. And with grounding techniques, you can do something like um, identify 5 things you can see near you, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. Because when it comes to anxiety, there are different types of anxieties. Kuna social anxiety. That is the type of anxiety where someone gets so much intense or overwhelming worry or fear when they are around people. They can't speak in a room of more than 2 or 3 people. Kuna panic disorders, kuna anxiety kama ya fear of heights, ziko mingi. But the moment the anxiety, you're noticing you're having an anxiety attack, that is maybe, for example, your heart is beating faster, you're sweating, your brain is all over the place, ama you're constantly worried something bad is going to happen and it might not even happen. So you need to find ways to ground yourself that time, to remind yourself that you're safe. Kuna zile breathing exercises. And when we conclude this session, there's a breathing exercise or technique that I'd want us to do together towards the end as a physical exercise. It helps with anxiety. Again, you remember when I said, huwa inaanza na cognitive triad: thoughts, emotions, behavior. So start to see how can you restructure that thought. Maybe one of your anxieties, oh my God, I'm going to die. Or, oh my God, I don't know, some of the anxious thoughts that you have. Try and find a way to restructure those thoughts. Once you've restructured it and you've replaced that thought with another thought that is not making you anxious, then the behavior will be one that will calm you down. But kuna meditation, kuna mindfulness, eating well. Kama unapenda kunywa kahawa, by the if you get anxiety a lot, reduce coffee or remove coffee from your diet. Coffee is known to trigger or make anxiety worse. Look at your sleeping patterns. Unalala saa ngapi? By the way, if you find yourself sleeping kidogo, or maybe 3 or 4 hours, maybe you sleep at 3 a.m., you wake up at 5 or 6, you will find yourself having a lot of anxiety or mood swings. So also start to look within your self-care. Uh, So anxiety is wide. If you notice it's something that is affecting you too much, again, enda muone daktari. Sasa sisi hapa therapists. I hope I have responded to that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Wendy. Then a quick one from a direct messages just received. How can I keep up with the fast-paced content creation space without feeling left behind?
Ati, how can you cope with
How
fast?
can I keep
Mm,
up with the
mm,
fast-paced content creation space without
mm.
feeling left behind?
Okay. I hope I'm still in the meeting. So there's something that I had shared in the slide, or maybe you will look at it later. In psychology, there's something we call locus of control. I'm sorry if the terms are a bit technical, but hapa wengi wetu hapa tuko na access to social media. Hizi vitu tuna Google. There's something we call locus of control. And when it comes to locus of control, this is whereby how your brain believes that it's a concept that was introduced by a certain psychologist called Julian Rotter. He says that locus of control is how a person believes that outcomes of their life are controlled by internal factors or external factors. For example, there are those people who believe that for them to be wealthy or for them to achieve something, it depends on their personal effort or abilities. And there are those who believe that for them to maybe even make it on social media, it depends on luck, fate, or outside forces. So, locus of control ni wewe una believe for you to, as a content creator, for you to achieve things. Is it something about you? Do you have strength? Do you have unique is there something unique about you? Is there something that you have that you can offer, or something that you're good at? So once you start looking at what you can do inwards, that by itself is a good starting point. Kwa sababu there can be 100,000 social media creators, but there can only be one you. And that uniqueness that you have is your biggest selling point. Maybe you can even be talking about the same thing. Kama Crazy Kena, there's Crazy Kena, there's Flaco, and there's this guy called Aura. I don't know if you've seen Aura, an upcoming guy. Social, I don't know if he's upcoming, but I've seen a lot of his videos. Most of their comedy is almost the same, but everyone has a unique selling point. Kuna vile mtu hata kama ni joke the same, kuna vile wanaideliver. So you need to believe in yourself, find ways to ground yourself in that. You need to also look at areas of improvement inwards. You need to look at what does feedback mean to you? Does feedback mean that you're so bad and you need to get out of social media, or does feedback mean that there's something you're doing but you can do this to improve? Okay, give yourself time, be patient with yourself. Your people will find you. Sawa, don't be so hard on yourself. Hiyo mambo ya perfectionism, comparison, no, from the thoughts to the emotions to the behavior, try and change those self-sabotaging thoughts. They will produce some relaxing emotions, and they'll produce eventually positive behavior. And talk to a therapist. We'll also see what are some of the personal issues. Labda boyfriend alikuambianga hiyo content inabona, hiyo ndo umeweka kwa akili. Enda tuongee na therapist, tutakusaidia vile tutadili nayo kabisa, from childhood level, from huko. Yeah, I hope I've responded to that.
Thank you so
Over to
much, Wendy.
Mm.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Thank you so much, Wendy, for that interactive section.
Mm.
Unfortunately, we've come to the end of that part of the session. If you have a follow-up question or need further clarification, please feel free to add it to the queue, to the chat box, or rather. So I will take it back to Doreen.
Thank you, Regina, for the great moderation, and to you, Wendy, for the amazing, amazing, amazing insights. I've never felt the need to go for therapy like I felt now. It's been really a learning moment for me. I don't know about the rest, but I feel like we need to have an episode 2 of this session. I don't know. It's quite very insightful. And you mentioned that we have the places we can get support. I think that's very important. So if you can very quickly just, if it's possible, if it's somewhere you can copy and paste in the chat. If not, I would humbly request that you add it on the slide, so that when you're sharing with the participants, they can get it there. Or if you can just mention quickly, especially you said there are places you can get support for free. So you can share more about that as well. And maybe can also use this opportunity to talk about other places to get support.
Okay. Maybe I wanted Dr. Juma, if he's online, I wanted him to respond on that, on where we can seek help. We have PsychX available there. We have our offices in Kenyatta University. For those who are in Thika Road, you can always reach out to us through our social media. You can be directed on how that support can be provided. When it comes to places where you can get free help, that is on telecounseling platforms. We have organizations like Kenya Red Cross through the hotline 1199. We have NACADA through 1192. There's LVCT Health, which is 1190. So most of the hotlines 1192, 1199, 1195, and angalia online you'll find. There's also hospitals like Kenyatta National Hospital. They have the psychiatric department or the youth wing where you can go and you'll be seen by a therapist. There's Madhare. Sijui mbona mpendi Madhare. Madhare kona free clinic. Okay, kona clinic days. I don't think it's free now. Maybe it's 200 or 300. The prices are there, but for you to be connected to a counselor, you want your professional counselor. Thank God for our partnership. We can also be able to see how we can work together so that your people can get therapy from us through PsychX. Yeah, virtual or physical sessions.
Thank you
If
so
Dr. Juma
much.
is here, maybe he can add something. Oh, kuna mtu ameandika, if Dr. Juma is here, Maybe he can add something. I don't know if there's time for that, Doreen.
I can say, Dr. Juma, are you able to use 1 minute, please? Because we're out of time.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Just 1
Yeah.
minute is okay. Thank you so much for the opportunity. So my point is, we would like to work with organizations, including DOT Kenya, which has taken the right step to bring us on board to have this discussion. What we encourage is having conversations that are able to improve our ability to bring out that intrinsic power to manage our mental health issues before we say we're going to a clinic to seek a therapist, or before that health becomes an illness. Health is normal and illness is abnormal. So we want to work with the normal, but in the event there is an abnormality, then we can manage. So we are happy to continuously work with the organizations like DOT to continue these conversations and masterclasses on very different things, because mental health is really diverse and there are so many aspects to talk about. Thank you.
We appreciate you, Dr. Juma, for even connecting us with Councillor Wendy. It's been such a great session, and we are definitely looking forward to how we can take this partnership forward and how our participants can tap into the support you have to offer. Wendy, please, I will remind you, but just note that you add those support systems in one of your slides, so that as I share this, they can get this information in there. At this point, I don't know what your key takeaway is. Maybe you can share with me, and this is to the participants in the room. You can share with me what is your key takeaway from this session. You can type in the chat, or you can continue this conversation on social media. Let us know in the comments in our latest posts, our post related to this session. You can tell us what really stood out for you from this conversation. I hope that you found it resourceful, and it's okay to not be okay. I think for me, my key takeaway is to normalize therapy. Young men, young women, everyone, therapy is really important, and to normalize self-care. So thank you so much. Special thanks to you, Councillor Wendy, for taking the time to share the insights with us. And I want to thank you, the participants, for being here with us today, for showing up. That is really commendable. And we hope to see you again. We have another masterclass coming on 11th. That is next week on a Wednesday, if I'm not wrong, Regina. So I want to encourage us to be on the lookout to be on the lookout for that particular masterclass. You can follow us on social media. Our handles are there. We are on LinkedIn, we are on X, we are on Instagram, and on TikTok. You can follow Digital Opportunity Trust, our global, the global .network. And you can also follow us on Facebook at .Kenya. I want to thank you all, the Kenya team as well. Thank you for your support in organizing this, to our amazing community leaders. Thank you for mobilizing. I know you made effort to ensure that the participants show up here today. So thank you so much. We've come to the end of our session. Feel free to leave at your leisure, and I hope we can meet again soon in our next masterclass. Asanteni sana.
Bye.